snow. He traveled on homemade skis, and the trip required 3 days over and 2 days back. His many feats of bravery and endurance are renowned here in Genoa and in his boyhood home in Oslo, Norway. He's buried under cross skis in Genoa, Nevada. I remember H.E. Dillinger operating the popular furniture store and undertaking business here before retiring in 1959. The building remained in the family for 62 years. My grandfather also owned and operated the art saloon next door during the 1891 period. It was located in the east end of the building near Quartz Alley. The building was built in 1862 with a very unique facade. Quartz Alley separated the art saloon from the three-story Carrie House, which my other grandfather, Marco Varosa, with Giuseppe Giannini, owned and operated in the 1870s. The old Carrie House was a popular stopping point for the stagecoaches, carrying passengers to all points east. Westbound stages also carried gold and silver bars from Virginia City, Nevada. My father told me about John A. Raffetto tearing down the old Carrie House during 1915 and reusing the bricks to build the Placerville Hotel. He discovered gold while digging in the foundation, and he paid for the building with the gold that he mined. His method of financing the new hotel was the talk of the town. In 1926, it was remodeled and renamed Raffles Hotel by his son Lloyd. He added an elevator and fourth-story suites. The Raffles Hotel has since changed ownerships, has been spruced up, and renamed the Carrie House. Hangtown Fry was the old town's most famous contribution to the culinary arts. It's believed to have originated in the early Carrie House, although there's some dispute as to the exact circumstances. The story accepted by most historians is as follows. A wary prospector who just struck it rich walked into the Carrie House, the best hotel in town, threw his poke filled with gold dust and nuggets on the counter, and demanded the best meal in the house. Oysters and eggs were the most expensive at the time and had to be shipped in. Eggs over rough roads and oysters in cans from the East Coast. The cook fried them together, and the concoction became known as Hangtown Fry. It's still served in many Western restaurants. The Wells Fargo office in the Carrie House handled gold and silver bullion. It was then valued at $43 million during the first 8 years of the Comstock lode boom in Virginia City, Nevada. It was stacked like cord wood at times on the porch of the hotel, all en route to Sacramento and the San Francisco Mint. I recall eating at a restaurant called the Forum, a cafe at 328 Main Street. This picture shows a luncheon of the major businessmen on the main street. It was later changed to the Forum was later changed to Bluebell Cafe and owned and operated by Taylor Dad Butts. Part of the building used to house a bar and a billiard parlor and a cigar shop. The Bluebell Cafe occupied the major portion, however, and was renowned for its Hangtown fries. It had a water-powered paddle fans in the ceiling. It was a favorite stopping spot for tourists and us teenagers. My grandfather, Marco Verosa, with his brother Giacomo, owned and operated the Oasis Billiard Saloon at 348 Main Street during the late 1870s. It was the largest saloon in town. Today, the site is occupied by the River City Bank, which replaced the Bank of America. The town clock, now located next to the City Hall, was originally located in front of the Bank of America. The Round Tent men's clothing store, established in 1849 by A.T. Taylor, was a round canvas tent. It was the oldest men's clothing store in California. After the major fire of 1856, the round tent was replaced by a handsome stone building whose front was stuck out in the street 18 feet. I remember the street became very narrow at this point and was particularly hazardous during the cattle drives that went through town. In 1928, the Elite Theater, formerly known as Sigwart's Opera House, to the east, burned to the ground. At that time, the city took over the 18 feet of the round tent store to realign the street. The city compensated the store owner, Frank Simon, by demolishing the building and rebuilding it into the present store. Mrs. Ruth McKee and I bought the store in 1938 and retired from the business in 1974. This picture shows a typical window dressing that we were changing continually. I saw my first silent movie at the old Elite Theater at 398 Main Street. I remember the heat during the summer months, especially when they had a big crowd of people. Because there was no air conditioning, the air became rather foul. Mrs. Travail, the operator and the proprietor, would stand on the mezzanine floor and spray the audience with perfume in the hopes of making the room more bearable. The high school class of 1926, my graduating class, held our graduation exercises in the Elite Theater, but we did not notice the heat at that time. After the Elite Theater burned in 1928, the beautiful home of John C. O'Donnell to the east was demolished. It originally was occupied, the lot to the east was originally occupied by the Empire Theater, known as the pride of the early mining days. The present Empire Theater and the building in which it is was built in 1929-1930. I recall a big department store at 438 Main Street, especially during the Christmas season. We'd climb the broad stairway up to the mezzanine floor to get a look at the big, colorfully decorated Christmas tree. The store was considered to be one of the finest in the area. It was built by Albert Shafsky in 1909, but later converted to the Santa Rita Hotel, and various stores now occupy the building. Here's a picture of the Presbyterian Church located on the top of Stony Point and opposite the courthouse. It stood high above the street and had a tall steeple. We held classes there in the 20s when the new grammar school was being built. Later, the church was torn down, the ground excavated for businesses. In 1937, Placerville's first Safeway came there, and in their new building, it's now occupied by the Round Table Pizza. The Fountain Tallman building was gifted to the Historical Society in 1981 by Fay Rupley Cannon and is listed in the National Historical Register. It was built in 1852 and was one of the few buildings that survived the Holocaust of 1856. It was used as a soda factory by John Fountain, who moved his soda works across the street. This is one of the few buildings left on Main Street that looks much as it did when new. The Chamber of Commerce upstreet is housed in the old Veterans Memorial Building. Farther upstreet, I remember the old mine tunnel at the rear of Pearson's Soda Works. It was one of the coolest places in town. Block ice from the mountain lakes and streams was cut and stored in the tunnel. Pearson was one of the first persons to start the ice business in El Dorado County. In 1897, a second story was added and the hydraulic elevator at the same time. All the bottling was done upstairs. Roger Duvers renovated the building in 1974 and did a fine job. Many times I've listened to the beautiful music flowing from the huge grand pipe organ in the attractive Methodist church near the corner of Cedar Ravine and Main Street. The church, called by some the most beautiful building in Placerville, was a two-story red brick building with the main auditorium on the second floor. Structural weaknesses brought about its destruction in 1959. The pipe organ, built in 1868, is one of the oldest in California and the first in El Dorado County. It was purchased by the Methodist Church in 1902 for $2,500. It was given to the El Dorado County Historical Society, moved to the county fairgrounds, played during the fair. Its beautiful music was enjoyed by fairgoers until damaged by vandals. But it can still be viewed in the organ room at the fairgrounds. Well, here's the last of the pictures in the album. Not the last of my memories.